Hello everyone and welcome to my coloring corner. Today is Fun Stuff Friday and we've had a ton of fun stuff to play with. So this is a wonderful birthday present I received. It's the Sanjoki markers. They're an alcohol marker with a brush tip as well as a chisel tip. They come in this fantastic bag that you can prop up so you can get to your markers. And yeah, so we're going to play with them a bit. I've picked out a picture to color, and I have, of course, swatched them. Just want to show you the tips here. This is the brush nib. And, of course, they also have a chisel nib. Ooh, that one looks like it's coming out a little bit. Interesting. So it seems that they can come out. I think I twisted it while I was pulling it out and pulled the nib out a little bit. So, but there's the chisel nib, and of course I have done a swatch of them, and I will do the swatch for you. On the swatch you will notice that I only put the number. The space is really small and I didn't want to fiddle with writing out all the big names on that small space. So they do have a number and a name. On the swatch you'll see that there's just a number. I will probably put the name in later. I did put a couple of the names in and whatnot, but I got frustrated with trying to fit all the names on those little tiny spaces. I probably will re-swatch them on a larger card so that I have more room for the names. Maybe. We'll see. I get lazy sometimes. Alright guys, of course now is swatch time, so grab your coffee and sit back and relax, and we will do a quick swatch and I will be right back. Alright guys. Okay, so that wasn't so bad. When I was swatching these, I noticed that they don't bleed. Like they bleed through the paper, but they don't spread as much as, say, the spree markers that I did the last time, which spread a little bit more. These I noticed stayed in the boxes unless I went out of the boxes, which of course I did. So yeah, I was really kind of impressed. I'm going to show you this swatch up close. Of course, the colors change after they dry, so while doing the swatching, you probably noticed that they were different colors than they should have been. I started off here with the medium yellows and light yellows, into our orangey yellows, into our orange, and then into our orangey brown colors, and into our red oranges, into our reds, into our dark reds, all the way through into our lighter reds, into our pinks, and then into our skin tone, our light skin tone colors here, as well as a couple of different ones that you would use for darker skin tones. Our bright pinks into our red purples, into our blue purples, and then into our blues, and then into our seafoam kind of colors, into our greens, and then into our dark greens, into our green browns, into our browns, and into our darker browns. These darker browns, when I was laying them down, they looked really, really black to me, and now they look the right colors now that they're dry. And then we go into our brown gray, and then into our blue grays, into our green grays, our warm grays, and of course our cool grays. So it has a fantastic range of colors. There is 120 markers in this set. So, you know, it's going to pretty much cover you for almost anything. Now we're going to take a closer look at the markers themselves. You know, like I said, I had to go through and arrange them into their colors. They do come with a little bit of marker paper, as well as a marker sheet for color swatching. I used that sheet to verify what colors there were here, so I could rearrange them so I could swatch them in their color families. Like I said before, they do tip forward. The lid folds up into this small stand so that you can tip your markers forward and use the whole bag. If you don't want to do that, you can definitely use one set at a time. They are in small plastic holders which hold an entire third of the markers at a time. The sides do Velcro open and closed, which is great for, especially for trying to get things in and out of the bag. I personally like to keep them in the bag when the bag is nice like this. If it's just a regular bag with nothing holding the markers in, I tend to I do have a tendency to put them into holders or other bags. But this one works really good, and I was really impressed with the quality of fabric as well as the quality of the Velcro strips. They're not really cheap, and they are actually sewn in really nicely. So, great bag. So far, with just the swatching of the markers, they seem to be really nice markers. We're going to color this picture here, which is a grayscale picture from Jade Summer, from the Jade Summer Grayscale Coloring Book Fairies. So we are going to color a picture from that. We'll color this picture from that, and we'll try to get as much of it done as possible. I will apologize for the previous videos. I did notice after watching them after publishing that yeah, in a couple of the swatches I moved the swatch out of view of the camera, and I gotta stop doing that. I keep on moving everything out of the view of the camera. Nobody gets to see what's going on. And I am so sorry. I didn't realize that I'd done it until after I had sat through and watched the swatch. But it happens, and not a whole lot I can do about it beyond redoing the swatch, and I'm not up to that right now. So I'm going to switch over to the close-up camera here, and we're going to get started on this wonderful little lady. And we've got our swatches here, so let's start with the moon, and we'll start with blue-gray 1. Let's see, where is it? Blue-gray 1. And like I said before, these are a brush nib, and they do quite nicely. Now this is a light color, so it's going to go on a little bit darker, but as it dries it'll just have a slightly blue tint to it. And I'm just going to color this whole moon with it. I'm not going to try to do anything too fancy. I will try to do a couple of blends just to see how well they blend together. But mainly I just want to put the color on the page and see how well it does with coloring book paper. Like I said, they did really well on the swatch, but the swatch is done in on cardstock, and it didn't seem to bleed too much on the cardstock. Now I did go over the line there, so it's going to bleed a little bit. And this is black backed, so of course it's going to go through, but it's not going to show on the back side as much. I'm not sure why they put the black backing on there. It's not it doesn't stop it from going through, and it just adds that dark shade to everything, whether you want it or not. So I'm trying to get into those small areas without going over the lines. And of course you can't see anything I just did because I was off camera, because I'm concentrating on what I'm doing and not watching the camera, which is probably why there are so many people out there that have extra people watching things for them. I don't feel like employing any of my children to do that, so because they would expect to be paid. They're at that age. They don't do things for their mom just for the joy of doing it for their mom anymore sometimes. Although my oldest did just ask me if I needed anything from the store, so I guess, sometimes they do. So as you can see, I was able to just bleed that down to the line, and it didn't go over, it didn't bleed past where I wanted it to bleed. So these do move. So if, like for example, if you're coming up against a line like that, I would suggest doing it a little bit away from the line and just letting it bleed towards it. Boy, my phone is just busy today. I hope that you have enjoyed the other videos that had come out. Today is one of those days where it's just going to be lots of them. I have so many videos coming out today. But from the color selection and the look of the swatch, it does seem that the set has everything, pretty much everything covered for anything that you would want to do with pretty much, landscapes, skin tones, anything like that. Whether it be a light or a dark skin tone, it has all of those colors covered for you. So one of these days I will have to practice doing a darker skin tone in marker. I've never done one in marker. I have done them in colored pencil, and I've gotten a little bit better with them with colored pencil, but I have never done them with marker. And this set does have some really great tones for doing a darker skin tone, so maybe I'll try that with these. They do seem to have a good amount of ink in them. They're not really wet where they're spreading ink everywhere, but they do seem to have the ability to fill a space quite quickly. Like I said, when you get up to where you want the color to stop, just make sure that you give it the opportunity to fill that space before you try to add any more color, so that you don't bleed into those areas that you don't want that color to be. Make sure that you keep your edges as wet as possible so that you don't get streaks. And because this is such a light color, going over the lines into an area that you don't want to be in isn't a huge ordeal, because it will get overtaken by anything darker that you're going to use, and pretty much everything else on this page is going to be darker. So I'm not overly concerned about the bleed over. I of course won't just cover an entire area with something that I don't want it to be, because as soon as you bleed over those lines, the next color you put down is going to follow that bleed line. So the areas that are a light blue, and say if you use red or purple or pink or whatever, and you don't want your moon to be purple or pink or red, it would be best not to bleed over. Okay, so now so there's a small area of the moon right here. Okay, then a little one here under where she's sitting. The one really good thing about Jade Summers grayscale books is they are light enough to use markers, but they are dark enough that you don't have to be overly concerned about blending and that sort of thing, because the grayscale is going to show through your markers enough that you don't have to worry too much about doing a shadow color. So you can just straight color with a marker all the way through. And you didn't see any of that because I was off screen. I'm going to actually pull that out a bit so that I don't do that anymore, because of course, I have a tendency to do that. So let's zoom that out so you can see better where I am instead of right up close. It's markers. It's not like you're having to see. And I think that's pretty close on its own, so we'll apply that. There. So as you can see, I've used that really pale blue-gray on the moon. And we're going to put that away, and then we're going to do, let's see what color. I think we're going to do a really pale purple on her hair. I'm trying to do this fairly quickly because, like I said, I have put out a few videos today, and I really don't want you all to have to, sit there for hours watching me. And of course tomorrow we're going to play with the Derwents a little bit more and do the background on our hashtag Color Australia in April, and we'll finish that up. I would like to congratulate the lovely lady that won the book on our Work in Progress Wednesday, and I can't wait to see Australian creatures everywhere. I need to color something out of that book. I have one too, but I haven't had a lot of time to color in it because I keep on coloring other things and I don't like leaving them half done. Now I'm just gently tapping in these areas, just watching the bleed line to make sure that I don't overdo it, because I don't want her shoulder or her neck to be purple. And just like the blue, it's a fairly light color, so I would be able to overcome that with the darker colors, but if you can avoid it, avoid it. Markers are not my absolute favorite thing to use, but I do love using them for a quick color and to just sit here and relax and not have to think about what color I should be using for the insides, what color should I use for this, what color should I use for that. It gives me the ability to make a mess with color, and I like doing that. And I do. I make a mess with them sometimes. And sometimes I don't publish everything I color because I look at it going, ooh, no. That does not look nice. And it's just because I want to play with the color. I want to see what the colors will do together, what they'll do, what best colors look the best together, and that sort of thing. And sometimes they don't look good together. Sometimes you sit there going, okay, why did I think that was a good idea? And other times they surprise you and you go, oh, I didn't think that was going to look good at all, and it looks fantastic. gives you the ability just to put the colors together and see what works in a quick period of time, you know, where I have found that the further I get with colored pencils and learning all of the different shading and different coloring techniques and all that fun stuff, that I really actually enjoy. But sometimes I just don't have the time to do it. And I don't get to put color on page because I worry that I'm not going to have time to finish it, or I don't have time to sit down and just concentrate on it. And of course it's getting close to graduation, so my youngest is busier and busier, and I end up having to stop halfway through a video so that he can do something on the computer camera wise for his graduation. And it's like, okay, well, or I have a meeting, you know, with the graduation committee, and now if only he can graduate and get a job and move out of my house, then I can have my craft room. One of them has to, sooner or later, right? I love my kids, I really do. I'm joking. I'd miss them. Although some days, there are some days that I would just sit there going, you know, it's so much nicer when and quieter when you guys are asleep or not home. Alright, so we've got the purple down for her hair, and we're going to let that dry a little bit. And we're going to do her dress in number 67, which is pastel blue. And we'll fix that part when we get to it, because I let it bleed a little bit too close, trying to get up into the very, very small areas. That's one thing I really, really like about the brush tip, is it gives you the ability to get into those really tiny areas and not worry too much, as long as you don't put too much pressure on the pen. You're not going to get a lot of ink out of it. So as long as you can watch where how much ink your pen is putting out, you can pretty much control it so that it doesn't go over the lines too much. But sometimes it doesn't matter how much you control it. It just goes where it wants to go. I'm just doing the flow of her dress here. And I'm just trying to let it flow out a little bit so that I don't end up putting that blue-green somewhere I don't want it to be. So when you get up into areas like this that are really tight, just keep your pen back a little bit and just let it flow into those areas. That's what I do anyway. Sometimes you just have to be a little bit carefuler. Is that a word? A little bit more careful. And try not to go completely over the lines. And if you find that there's still a line there that isn't the right color, you just go over it until it is. And just try to stay as back as far as possible. So that you don't bleed over. Just let it flow out and watch it as it flows. And if you just go over an area a few times, that flow will get larger. Now this area here, because it is so large, I can use the chisel nib and get a larger area done. I can usually get a pretty big area done with just the brush nib, but the chisel nib does keep that moving so you don't get as many lines. Oops, I just went over the line. Where if you were to just use your brush nib at this point, you may find that there's a lot of stop and start lines because you've given it enough time to dry. And then when you get to a smaller area, just flip your pen over and just bring that line down to where you want it to be. And don't stick out your tongue too far. In concentration. All right. Now I'm going to do this area with the brush nib because I don't want that part to be light blue. That's going to be a darker color. So with the areas that need to be dealt with nice and smoothly, it's best just to use the chisel nib for the large areas and the brush nib for these smaller areas that are going to bleed over if you put too much. Now I have a line there, so what I'm doing is I'm just feathering it out a little bit so it doesn't have a stop and go spot. And when it dries, hopefully it won't dry stuttery like that. Alright, now we've got this area here. Yeah. Okay. I think I've ruined this dress, but we'll see. Such large areas, sometimes you can end up with stop and go lines, and I don't like them. But I will see if I was able to blend that out. You have to wait until it's completely dry to be able to see if you were able to blend that out. Otherwise, you just keep on adding ink to it, and it just makes the stop and go worse. Okay, now I've just got this area here and the edges of her, the darker edges at the bottom of her dress. See this area here where it stops and goes? I really don't like that. So I'm just going to try to feather it out a little bit. See if I can eliminate that stop and go. Sometimes I end up going over the entire gown to eliminate it, which is fine, but it is a little bit tedious. And it can warp your paper a little bit with the amount of ink that's going into it. And I may not fix it. It may just be what it is. But we will see when it dries how bad it is. Like I said, we may not fix it. It just may just have to be what it is. So we're going to go into here. And that's one of the reasons why I prefer pencils to markers, is it gives me a lot more control of where my color's going, you know, how to blend those lines out if I get lines, things like that. Where I haven't learned with markers as much on getting things nice and smooth. But I do like markers. I like the colors. They're always so vibrant and so bright. No matter what you do with them, they're just so bright. Even the pastel colored ones are super bright. They're so fun to play with. You know, when I first started coloring, I really preferred markers because they were less work. You know, to me, they just, the color was right there. It was bang. It was there. It was nice and bright. Now I get the same satisfaction with the layering and the building of color as I used to get with just boom, there it is with a marker. And I know a lot of people that do absolutely gorgeous things with markers. I am not one of those people. I can use them, but I can't blend like some people do. Some people can just blend those markers together and it just looks like, I don't even know what to say it looks like. It's just gorgeous. Alright, so we've got her dress done. Now we're going to take a darker blue, so I think number 66. Maybe, if we can find it. There it is. And we're going to do the edging. So like down here. These markers don't smell bad, but they do have a slight odor. Like it's not as bad as some, but if you are one that can't handle marker smell, I think it's just more of a alcohol, because only some of them have it, so it's probably just ones that are really juicy. Ones that seem to have a lot more alcohol in them than others seem to have a bit of a smell. Like this one here is a lot juicier. It's flowing a lot further, and as you can see, I've gone over the line there, and that's just because this is got a lot more coming out of it than the other one did. I'm trying to stay in the lines. And usually the thicker lines will stop the ink as long as you don't go over that line. As long as you don't give it an open border to flow, it should stop. But if you go over the line, it gives it an open border, and it'll just flow just like water. Just like if you've lifted the dam off of a river. Especially these really juicy ones. That's why I try really hard to stay away from those lines. And just let it flow to it. as long as you let it flow to it. Sometimes it'll just stop right at the line. If you go over the line, it will just continue flowing. I'm just doing up the bottom of her skirt here. And sometimes you gotta give it a couple of seconds to do that before you go over it, so that it finishes its flow before you add more. Especially if you've really doused the line. Like that. As you can see, I got too close there. It's the only thing that takes doing markers a little bit of time, for me anyway, is constantly being cautious of where the line is. So that it doesn't look messy. But I do like how smooth and seamless it looks if you get it done the right way. I'm not too good at the right way though. But I have seen some gorgeous work with some markers though. I'm telling you. There are some people out there that can just, my goodness. The things that they can do with markers is just phenomenal. But it's like anybody with any medium. The better you get at it, the better it looks, right? I'm quite sure if I really spent a lot of time doing nothing but markers, I can figure them out a little bit better. But I really like my pencils, so I end up spending more time with them because I have more of them. And the one thing, the only thing I really, like I said, I really don't have a fondness with markers for is the fact that I don't have as much control as I do with colored pencils. Because that ink will go wherever it wants to go, especially if you put enough of it down or too much of it down. The paper just drinks it up. Okay. Now we're going to quickly do the wings, and I think call it a day, since we're almost into an hour into just doing hair and dress. So I think with the wings we're going to, what color should we do the wings? Let's see. I think we're going to do her wings pink. Why not? Let's do her wings pink. Number 17. Or actually, let's do it in yellows. So we want number 123 and 37, I think, are the best ones. So we'll do, and we'll do a bit of blending here. We're going to do number 37 up here, closer to the body. Trying to keep as much of it away from her hair and other blue areas and purple areas, because yeah, we don't want them to be green. Alright, and then we're going to take this one and we're going to go right into that other area. And we're just going to go from there. And try to stay away from the edges. I know it's hard when it's such a small area. And of course, you know, anything like this little edge here, if it doesn't turn out right, you can just go over it with gel pen. That's what I do. And we're going to bring that up to the tip. Now, because I had to go over that area there to keep it wet, I'm just going to go back over it a little bit with this one, just to darken that up a little bit. Just to make that a little bit of a darker yellow, almost an orangey yellow. Because of course the more times that you go over something, the darker it gets. Okay, so then we're going to do the top wings as well. And I'm going to turn her so that you can actually see what I'm doing. Like I said, I'm just going to go close to the body with this darker yellow. Bring it out. This has got some darker yellow on the tips as well. And up here closer to the splines or spines or those areas. Alright, now I'm going to take that lid off, and I'm just going to do this while I'm still wet, so that it doesn't cause lines. So that you get a seamless blend and not a stop and go line. Now if you want this side here to be a little bit longer in the dark, just add a little bit more of the dark. Just make sure that you don't give a stop and go line. And let it blend together. Same with here. And just take your dark and go into those areas that you want it to be dark. Now you can do it the other way around, however sometimes when you put down the dark first, as you could probably tell with what I've done here so far, the dark will get overtaken by the light, which is fine if that's what you want it to do, but if you don't want the light to overtake the dark, put it down first and then put down your dark. Just be careful because that's how you end up coloring your hand. I'm going back and forth with your pen. Now I have both pens open in my hand, so when I finish with one area, I can get to the dark areas before the one area is dry, so that I don't end up with some harsh lines, so that it blends those colors into one color. Now larger areas like this wing here are a little bit more difficult, but as long as you go back and forth and keep those edges wet, it's not so bad. It's just when you stop and then you let it dry and then you try to go in and add more of the dark or more of the light, it's going to give that stop and go edge, and that's not what you want to happen. You wanted a consistent, smooth texture. And of course, any of those light spot areas that you want to be lighter, and just go over them a little bit with the lighter marker, and it will move that darker marker out of the way. Just be careful with doing that, because if you're close to the edge of something, that darker marker and the lighter marker of course will still be trying to push against each other and off of the page area. I know we're not anywhere close to being done her, but we're going to finish up these wings, and then I am going to say thank you very much for watching. I hope it was helpful. These markers are very, very nice. Of course, the link for them is going to be in the description below, and of course it will be an Amazon link, and it's an affiliate link because my husband purchased these on Amazon, and I am an Amazon affiliate, so every time you click on one of my links and it's an affiliate link, it does go towards the channel, so it helps me out with purchasing things for the channel as well as prizes and things like that. So of course, if you want to support the channel, of course none of this is at a cost to you. You can do so by clicking a link and making a purchase. Of course, it doesn't help if you don't make a purchase, but it does help me out quite a bit when you do make a purchase by clicking a link. And it helps you guys out because then I can do more prizes. All right, almost done. I don't know if these colors are the best together, but I like them. So we've done a very light blue-gray on the moon. We're doing a fluorescent yellow and a dark yellow on her wings. And we have done a beautiful light turquoise and a dark turquoise on her dress. And we have done her hair in a very light pink, purple. I was going to say pink. Very light purple. So it gives you an idea of the range of colors and the ability to blend and mix them as well. And like I said, if you find that there's an area that you've gone a little bit too far with the dark, you can just go over it with the light and it will eliminate that dark a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to put those away before I get ink everywhere. And we're going to take a closer look at this beautiful woman. Now, as you can see, I stop and went here, so there's a line there. It's not too big of a deal, so it's light enough that it is not a problem. This area here isn't quite dry yet, and I may need to go over this area here just so I can bring it up to the same color as this part here now. Let's switch over to the main so you can see the whole thing. So we've done her wings, we've done the moon, we've done her hair, and we've done her dress. And I think it's turned out pretty good so far. I will probably go through and once I finish coloring it, I'll color it with the markers, and then I'll go through with some colored pencil and some gel pen and give it some finishing touches and make it all pretty. Alright guys, I want to say thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it informative. And if you enjoyed these brush markers, I will definitely leave a link to those in the About section below. If you want to join us over on Facebook, you can definitely do so. The link is also in the description below. I just ask that you fill out the application form. Answer the questions on the application form. There's 2 or 3, maybe 4. The reason for those questions is to protect our community, to make sure that all of our members are protected from scams and spam. There are some scams going on out there where people are joining groups and taking other people's colored pictures and turning them into a profitable whether it be a towel or a t-shirt or things like that. They're making profit on it, and you've done all the hard work on it. So in order to avoid that situation, we just make sure that people can't join our group that doesn't fill out the application form. And those kinds of people don't fill out the application form. 9 times out of 10 it's done with a bot, and those definitely don't fill out the applications. So just make sure you fill out the application form. That's all we ask. Of course, like, comment, and subscribe. If you're not a subscriber to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. I'm so close to hitting 1,000 people. As soon as I do, of course, I will have the ability to have a community page, and that's what I'm most looking forward to, is being able to put up different discounts as well as different products that my husband creates and stuff like that in the community page for everybody to see, not just people on Facebook. So hopefully we'll get there really quick. Like I said, if you're not already a subscriber and enjoy the channel, just hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. I put out a video at least one every day except for Sundays. And even on Sundays, sometimes I have special videos that go out. Last but not least whatsoever is have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you again on Saturday for our hashtag Color Australia in April. I will be finishing that with the Derwent pastel pencils, and I will be doing the background on that, so that should be fun. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. You all have a fantastic day. Bye-bye for now.